And it upset me. It upset me and my homegirls because we feel like,
well, damn.
If you can't watch a docu-series about an abuser without seeing an abuser, then where the hell should you go?
Y'all already know what time it is. I got the black V-neck on. So 31 years ago, I'm 31. So back when I was in like middle school and high school, I did see the tapes. Like I did. And when you talking about like where was the culture, like I remember people in my family like watching it and like, have you seen it? So I'm thinking to myself like, that was child pornography. So there are some people that I know right now would probably be in jail for that. Like, and I'm just, I don't like it makes me really, really think. Like, I mean, even think about even before, like, what are we doing? Some of the stuff that we're doing now that is not right. But 30 years ago, back when I was like 16, I did see the videos, and I didn't think nothing of it. So I know some of y'all are different ages and stuff. So when you first heard of it or saw it or whatever, where were you at? Where were you at?
So I am 22. So I'm pretty sure I was in middle school-ish when the videos first surfaced. And
so the first thing came out in 2001, didn't it?
Did it?
I think so.
Or was it 03? It was somewhere.
It was somewhere around that. So that's
okay.
So
I was in high school because I'm older than you.
Absolutely. So so then I was maybe elementary, middle school, somewhere around that area. And I remember, like, I can distinctly remember the conversation or the narrative around R.Kelly changing from him being like this music sensation to the man who peed on the girl. Like I remember that transition, and so that's why it's like astonishing to me now to even think about the fact that it's been 30 years that he's been doing this when for so long we have associated him, like Jamila Lemieux mentioned it in the docu-series, we've associated him with peeing on a child. Like that's been his legacy.
His cultural
and I think that that's interesting. But I do remember that, and I don't like to refer to the tapes as child pornography because I recognize that notwithstanding like the violence that marginalized sex workers deal with in the porn industry, porn is supposed to be something that invokes the erotic, right? Like it's supposed to be something that we do enjoy when we engage in consensually, and children should never be associated with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So like I when I first saw these tapes where children were being recorded of being abused, right?
Yes.
Like it was a moment for me, and I think that the culture, by which I mean all of us as a community, failed by not being able to engage that conversation well enough to where people like me who were young could understand exactly what rape culture was and exactly how we maneuvered throughout it, because we all engage in it in some way, right? Like because it is the culture, right? And I think that if we were either more equipped or if we cared more about Black women and survivors at large to engage in that kind of conversation, I think I would be recalling a very different understanding of when I first encountered these tapes.
So, not to put you on the spot, how old are you? Like,
I'm 25.
Okay.
And so the thing for me, my first encounter with it, my mom is a hairstylist and barber. We are from Macon, Georgia, so we are very Black, very Southern. it is what it is. So, I mean, my interaction with it was definitely in the hair salon, in the barbershop, right? Like, I remember tapes coming in from the bootleg man, right along with the purses and everything else that we hustled. And, I remember it being like a moment, like in the salon, like clients, like people who work there, like, after hours, we're going to shut it down, we're going to watch this, like, nobody's opinion, though, like, process that the person in the video is being a child.
Yes.
Like, now that I reflect back on it, like, it was, yes, we say, like, R. Kelly's pissing on little girls. Kiki. But it's like, no. Just go back and think about that statement. He is performing sexual acts on children. And it goes back to the common theme that we all harp on about how, Black children are, we never get a chance to be children because, how Black people are looked at in history. I mean, we don't get, our body has always been chattel, right? It just is what it is. Like, we are property, we're not human, so therefore we don't get a childhood. We don't get motherhood. We don't get fatherhood. we don't get girlhood, boyhood. You know, you're just your body is not your own. Your body isn't normalized.
Absolutely.
And so when you talk about where is the culture was definitely not in a place. Like if we weren't in a place where we could fundamentally say that is an adult and that is a child. Therefore, A and B, that is wrong.
Right.
Like, how could we expect the culture to be protective? How can we expect the culture to believe the survivor? How can we expect the culture to want to hold R. Kelly accountable? Even with the Aaliyah point that they made in the first half. Yeah. Aaliyah was never looked at as a 14, 15-year-old child. Not even a teenager.
Still, a lot of people that young.
Her defense was, she was very mature. She's already a pop star.
For her age.
She's grown up, right? She's wearing this, she's doing that. But it's like nobody... We want a baby girl Aaliyah when we talk about her dying in a plane crash.
Right.
But we don't baby girl Aaliyah when we talk about her marrying R. Kelly and having sex with him before she's even 16 years old.
We talk about her wearing crop tops and everything else. She wasn't a baby girl then.
She wasn't a baby girl at all.
But then there was one person that did recognize that she was a baby girl, and that was Timbaland. And we all saw the video of Timbaland saying that he knew he was too old for her. But he was yes.
Yeah, which is the strangest thing to me.
It was very strange. And that interview was not that old because he even said that he knew his wife was going to be his wife because she reminded him of Aaliyah. That was very disturbing.
I did not see that video.
And you see his wife.
Tim felt a different kind of magic when he spotted a young marketing exec at an industry event in Jamaica.
When I first saw her, I said, that's a girl I'm a man because she reminded me of Aaliyah.
Wow. So I think with that, like being that Timbaland made this video, which I had never seen until just now, like I think that ties into just what we saw in the docu-series, right? Like with his assistant Demetrius and with his brother Bruce, his brother Bruce, and how they like defended him, how they were even in the conversation like on the docu-series, how they were still finding ways to defend him, how they were still finding ways to talk about why they didn't intervene or what they did do, and the former employee who didn't show their identity, and the music producer who went in, and Craig Williams, who went in and saw all the girls lying around in different rooms and didn't say a single word. Right?
Saying, I knew something wasn't right. Yeah,
I knew something wasn't right, but I wasn't going to step in. I wasn't going to tell them to go home. I wasn't going to be something to like some type of figure to these little girls who were obviously being used by this grown ass man, right? And so I guess like the question that we get from that is, what is it that makes mainly black men be complicit in this type of behavior, right? Like, is it this brotherhood?
Child.
Well, we saw two versions of black. Like, well, we saw two versions because his brother, the one that's in jail with the color contacts or whatever,
I'm screaming.
Electric chair. Like, period. Like he made it even more difficult for me to continue to watch because he's like. He got a type.
He got a preference.
He like younger women.
He did.
He like younger women.
So we had that, and then I thought, we'll come to find out the other brother, what is his name?
Carrie.
That was the one that he said that was in the tape with the girl that was 14 at the time.
That's why he was saying that, right? So Carrie had been a body double for his brother in a music video,
right.
And when that video of the child tapes came out, R. Kelly's lawyers and his team said that Carrie was the one who had, because I don't know how they found this logic. Like, I don't know what law school they went to, but they said
reasonable doubt is all you. If I can just sprinkle a little bit of doubt,
but I don't even know how you arrive at that point because they said he did a body double in this music video, therefore that was him in this video. I don't know how we arrive at that point, but they did, and that's what they did. And R. Kelly never came out and said, even if R. Kelly, what makes it clear to me that R. Kelly was guilty in that moment was if I wasn't a pedophile, but I also didn't want my brother to be blamed for this, I would easily have come up with a statement that said, I didn't engage in that. However, this is also not my brother in this video.
Yeah.
Right.
R. Kelly didn't say a single word and allow his brother to take that blame, and even offered money for him to do so.
Well, that is black culture too. I mean, that is black culture too. Like, it is always known that if you are the person in the black circle, in the black family, in the black organization, you know, if you are somehow less important, less powerful, you take the fall for whoever is the breadwinner, the face, the person who is out here, because they are more valuable than you, in whatever sense it may be.
So it makes me think about did the no snitching come into play with this type of situation?
It also wasn't just a no snitching, it was just money as well. They were getting paid by him. That's his team. So they were paying for flights to get these girls. They were going out to recruit certain girls. So it was like, and also someone touched on in the documentary that he was used to people saying yes all the time. So with that, he just continued to do what he wanted to do. So it's also just like they're being paid. So why would I say something? Why would I lose my job? I have to make a living. So I'm just not going to say nothing at all.
I also think money is extremely important in this situation, but also like how we were talking about the culture. I think that certain dynamics were reproduced from like white supremacy, period. That black women were not valued. Their stories are not important. Their bodies don't fucking matter. And so when you have that coupled with money, like you said, it's just easy for somebody to be like, well, girl, whatever, to just brush it off. And so that, I think, has permeated to this day, how the culture treats black women out, anybody that's not a man, and how they're valued, the differences in how they're appreciated or not. And I think that is extremely fucked up.
And I think that what we were talking about earlier, just a little bit ago, is because of that, right? Like, the black church found its way away. Like, once we got through slavery, right? We found our way to this very surface racial justice, this very surface racial analysis that gave the black church a specific sort of power and control of the culture and where exactly we went, how exactly we went, what exactly we thought, how exactly we moved, right? And I think that plays a major role in respectability politics and how it shows up within our own communities. And so I think that is in part why so many people trust that this will be the final thing for R.Kelly before we see some sort of justice with him, where
the documentary,
the docu-series, right? Because so much more, it's statistically proven that our generation is a lot more queer than previous generations, right? And that the black church is dipping in numbers, right? Like so much of the black church is losing their base. They're losing the folks who were holding on to them, because the reality is that we were the ones who were in the pews. We were the ones in the choir. We were the ones directing the choir. We were the ones preaching. And because we're no longer doing that anymore, I think that plays a role in who was complicit, who is still complicit, and now who is realizing like this has been an issue for a long time, and we have a responsibility now, because we are removed from this institution that has told us and that has shown us that we do not respect black women, that we do not respect survivors of sexual assault, right? That we do not prioritize people who are not cishet black men. Now that we are forcing even some of our elders to say, you have a responsibility to show up for and protect and defend and care for people who are more marginalized in our communities, I think that has pushed us away from people being so complicit and more towards some sort of accountability.
And I think you're completely correct in that. Like, the black church does still have a lot of power, but it definitely did. And I can only imagine how it would even feel as a survivor to be trying to stand up for yourself, and then you have the church playing I Believe I Can Goddamn Fly.
Literally. They did talk about how important it was, and how when he was challenged, he would go over and with some gospel music, and
that's that whole forgiveness bullshit that you were speaking about specifically.
Yeah, I think so. That's how I was introduced to R. Kelly, or that's how I best remember R. Kelly. I remember like through the gospel music. Actually, I remember as a child, child like TP3. I think that's the name of the album. My mom had that album in our house, and I very vividly remember it, like playing it and like listening to it as a kid. And of course, R. Kelly dropped out of my memory, and then he shows back up around the time I Believe I Can Fly comes around, and he like is rehabilitating himself through gospel music in the black church, and again being raised like Baptist-costal and like very religiously, we are always taught, and I was always raised to like have a certain type of silence around sexual violence and have a certain type of silence around your predators, especially if they're black, especially if they're family. So this culture of silence and these kind of lessons of silence that the black church perpetuates definitely was influential to me, and how I treated my assailants, and it shows up in our culture writ large. Like, it shows up in how we deal with who we say we hold precious and who we say we really don't care about.
So when you mean silence, what type of silence? Like, we're saying the church teaches us to silent, like keep silent when it comes to this situation. What do you mean? Can you explain that a little bit? In what ways? Because I know it's a bunch of them, but I'm just trying to like.
So,
is it like respecting elders even though I've told you that this person has done something to me? Because I know from folks in my family have talked about their experience they have shared with their grandmother and their mother, whatever, and nobody believed them.
I think it's even you believe. Like, I think that there's even an area of we believe you, but we are not willing to sacrifice or excommunicate this person from our community, because community as an idea is so precious, right?
Oh, okay.
So, like, even me, I used to have extreme issues with excommunicating and dealing with people who were predators, who were, especially if I had relationship with them. All of my assailants are family members, and like, I go back home and I have to have Thanksgiving dinner with them. So like, I have a very different understanding of what it means to negotiate and deal with a predator and an assailant. So again, when you are taught that you are not supposed to be vocal and truthful and forthcoming, and definitely you're not supposed to be isolating to an assailant or about an assailant, then it begins to transform the ways in which we negotiate politics of removal, negotiate politics of rehabilitation, negotiate politics of justice.
True. True. One thing I did think about, I think that, and I don't know how to put this, I think a lot of people's problems were, at that time, is that they don't believe that God will give someone a gift like that. Ooh. And still be evil at the same time.
And that shit kills me, because Hitler was a great speaker. They was talking about he was a great painter and shit. And you can be talented and a fucked up ass individual at the same time.
I think we're all talented in some way.
It's all rooted to me in decorum, right? Like, one of my biggest chants in life is divorce decorum. I truly believe us as black folks in this society will find some degree of liberation and just wholeness and justice in divorcing decorum. We've had to perform decorum, whether it be through religion, whether it be through gender, whether it be through, going through being the talented 10th. Now I'm an intellectual, I've got this fancy degree, I'm here, you're there. Decorum, I'm a human. All these things assign humanity to us.
Absolutely.
And so us going against our decorum and pointing out somebody in our society as wronged, as flawed, as sick, as in need of rehabilitation, as in need of accountability, that goes directly against the black law of decorum. To go to church on Sunday prim and proper in your Sunday dress, we are Sunday best. We know what that's rooted in, right? We know the slavery ties in that. That is the one point out of the week as a slave you could put on something nice and perform this decorum, this humanity. So for you to go to church in that and have these horrendous acts happen to you, then you have to face that, you have to deal with that, you have to hold that person accountable, and now that person loses a position of I don't know, ahead of something in our community, right? Somebody of importance, right? You're pulling that person down. You're saying, oh, we are animalistic. We are these things that they say we are. We have to face our decorum if we're going to hold anybody accountable for any heinous acts in our community.
You're completely right.
Absolutely.
I think that decorum has been a pillow, a pacifier, something that we can, there's ugliness everywhere, but if we just have this decorum, this way of life, this way of interacting, and that's the only thing that we have. But I think that that's what a lot of people believe. But I think that once we understand that that's not all we have.
Yeah,
we have so much more, and because we have so much more, it's worth protecting.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know.
And I can't count how many times, but I've heard him be referred to as a genius. I know.
Even in that
they all had to say that he was a genius, like he was talented before, or when he was trash. I was just like, can we get?
But what he does in the studio.
But that was a lot of the conversation on Twitter, like on social media. People were saying that they can't separate the art from the person.
But you can, because he was writing music about children.
The Pied Piper of R&B.
Like that's what's so fucking
frustrating,
wild to me. Like this man for 30 plus years was making music where he was explicitly saying, "I fuck little kids
and don't care
and don't give a fuck and don't." Like, I don't know. I don't know. Like,
age ain't nothing but a number. Aaliyah's 15-year-old debut album, written by him, with him creeping in the background of the album cover. She is standing up front.
She's literally right here.
Creeping in the background.
And age ain't nothing but a number.
Art dictates life.
Age ain't nothing but a number.
I find it so. I still can't wrap my mind around that.
I couldn't wrap my mind around when they did the interview, and the woman asked, "People saying y'all are dating," and they said, "No, none of this is going on," while they were dressed like.
Yeah. And they didn't even say that was going on. They jumped around.
Okay,
girl.
Yes, my best friend.
And they're dressed up.
In the whole world. Like,
no.
You best friends with this almost 30-year-old man while you 14, 15-year-old girl? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And Aaliyah's family. No shade to y'all, but shade to y'all.
Shade to them.
Shade to y'all. Y'all already don't have the album on the goddamn Apple Music or whatever.
Right.
So, Aaliyah's family, Miss Halton, whatever her name is this week, released a statement or a notepad statement and said that none of this shit happened. These girls are lying, like from the fourth time, with the tongue out of the Bible or something. I don't know, eat the apple. I don't know what type of church statement that she released. It was a church statement. It was straight from the bulletin board.
Her Cornerstone Baptist Church released that statement for her.
With a little dove and everything.
Foot of the church.
And I was just like, but girl, we're looking at this information, and he did marry her when she was 15.
And she said she was 18, so she knew she was wrong. Like, we don't have to fabricate anything. It's not about her story.
That's what I'm saying.
It's clear. Like, and other stories we don't have evidence for, but we have evidence for hers.
And he went up there saying that, the assistant, one of them, went up there saying that he forged the documents.
He literally said it. Like,
so, and we were with her every moment. That's what she said. We were with her every moment.
Either her date of birth is alive,
do you think she was trying to protect her? Was she trying to protect Aaliyah's image, or was she trying to protect
her goddamn self?
Herself. Because there's no way to protect Aaliyah's image because Aaliyah was not in the wrong.
Right.
She has nothing to protect besides the fact that her life was not protected.
That's true.
Like, if we were worried about protecting her image, she should have been standing in the gap for her daughter when her daughter was about to get married to this almost 30-year-old man.
And I didn't understand how she was more angry at Lifetime than the person who forged the goddamn documents so that this person could
get married. She's asking to be under the jail. Under the jail.
Period. Just go to jail.
And I think that begs the question, like, how exactly do we arrive at holding our own R. Kellys accountable in our own communities?
Ooh.
Right?
Can I answer that question first? Because again, because I just talked about like having to negotiate weirdly strange, these weird intimacies with your assailant that you really don't want to have because they're familial. Mm-hmm. And I think that you have to hold the ways in which we hold our R. Kellys accountable and within our own communities is by forcing these types of conversations to the forefront of the family discussion. Period.
Period.
At all. Through any avenue. I met Orenike today, the co-founder of Mute R. Kelly, and she made a great point about how this, if the documentary was nothing, it was a way through which we could sit at the dinner table and talk about R. Kelly, but we're really talking about our Uncle Ben, who's been having sex with so-and-so, right? Yes. So it becomes a conduit of conversation and for conversation. And I think we can find ways to have conversations about it indirectly, but directly. That's not to dismiss and say we should not be explicit in calling out our assailants, irrespective of their relation to us, right? I think that that's still a political option, and a viable one, and one that's tenable. However, I'm more so thinking about how we are in community with people who are dangerous, and how we hold these monstrous intimacies, for lack of a better word. Shout out to Christina Sharp, and we really don't know how to navigate them.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes these intimacies that we hold with assailants make us confused or harm us and make us want to shut down. And I'm thinking about ways and avenues through which we can move through that. But also, like, if you want to curse them out and slap them, that's also.
Wait, they ask me if we counsel him, we got to counsel everybody.
Yeah, okay. That's also,
So, what now?
What
can you say? It's going down. I'm yelling.
Better move.
Okay? And I think that it's interesting that I think that it's important that you raise that point, because the docu-series itself had R. Kelly's in it, right? Like, Charlamagne the God, Leonard, who the brother that we watched walk into that house and then walk back out and then walk back in.
You're that brother.
He was that brother. That's what Monique said.
Yes.
So what was Monique saying when she was saying that, like,
she said we watched that movie Birth of a Nation, where we saw that brother walk into that house to take his wife to that master.
I haven't seen Birth of a Nation.
To walk back out. And then walk back. What she was saying was, a black man on Birth of a Nation walked his wife. I haven't seen it either, but I gathered it from her words.
Yes,
walked his wife into the house to be raped by the massa. Left the house and then walked back in to kiss his wife. And she said that Charlamagne was that brother.
I believe it.
Monique dragged his ass.
Dragged him.
And
on his own shit.
I was like,
on his own shit.
On his own show.
With
like,
his real name.
And it upset me. It upset me and my homegirls, because we feel like,
well, damn.
If you can't watch a docu-series about an abuser without seeing an abuser, then where the hell did you go?
I think that's the only thing that they really kind of like, because everybody's reaction was
just like, girl, really?
I added Dream Hampton, the producer of it.
Did she respond?
She did. She made her own tweet. She did respond. And
she responded to you?
She didn't respond to me, no. Because there was too many people who were at her, so she made one blog tweet.
Okay.
And she said that
abusers need to speak up too.
No, she said that she hadn't seen any of Leonard's old tweets, and that she had interviewed him prior to him being prior to his allegations coming forth, and then she said that she spent more time being concerned about not having Bruce in it as much than she did about Charlamagne, and wasn't focused on that, and she called it a mistake. I'm gonna drag it. Okay, that's not how that works.
So they tried to hit it with they missed the mark.
You don't get to blame
said, but like the reality is, like I realize that there's a lot that goes into a documentary, especially a docu-series, and it was 6 hours worth that we saw on screen, so I can imagine what they actually have recorded. Right? I get that.
Is true.
However, Charlamagne the God, Leonard, has had allegations against him for several years now.
And the thing is that he said it out his own
mouth.
But that video is no longer up.
It's no longer available on YouTube.
Not so ironically.
Because I made a thread about all the things that Charlamagne had done.
And he snatched that shit down.
When you go to the tweet now, that YouTube video is no longer available.
She snatched it down.
Neither is the tweet that tweeted it. Or the Twitter that tweeted
had the video inside of it.
Right. So it's like,
it's okay.
And you know he has connections to all the folks at YouTube and at Google, and so he probably had to pull it down. But the reality is that I was disappointed in Dream Hampton's response, because it wasn't just about his three tweets that he made about her, right?
Yeah.
Like he has said out of his own mouth that he has raped his wife. His wife went on his show and chastised him for using that language because she didn't recognize it as rape. However, the reality is that's exactly what it is. That's what he meant. That's what he said. That's what it was. And there's no taking that back.
Flying and shit.
What's he talking about?
Spanish flying people and shit.
Oh yes, yeah. Like, and that, like, there's no taking that back, right? But then beyond just what he said about his wife, a 15-year-old girl came forward about what he had done to her at a house party that he threw.
Mm-hmm.
Leonard says that he threw the house party, left, and got a call hours later that this girl had been raped. First of all, I don't know why a 15-year-old girl was able to be in the house party in the first place. So that was already wrong on his end, period. And I don't care what anybody says. I don't care. No 15-year-old girl looks like she's over 15. I don't care how much makeup she has on. I don't care what fake identity she has in her hand. I don't look at a 15-year-old girl and say, oh, she's 21 years old.
Unless you're a
pedophile.
So you're not saying, so how are we talking?
Right. There is no how are we talking word to R.Kelly. There's none of that, right? Like,
and you hear people speak too.
Like, you just know. So anyway, this 15-year-old girl was in his house party. He left. He claims in a video that he got a call. So instead of rushing back to the house, he rushed to the police station. This is, again, his words. Rushed to the police station, gave a statement saying that he wasn't home, but that he would take the blame for the rape, gave his own DNA, and then went from there, right? But like, my questions to him were, I don't understand why you would take the blame for this if you didn't do it.
Especially something as serious as that.
And he also lied about his age.
He also lied about his age. He said in his statement that he wasn't old enough to buy alcohol then. However, the court document said that he was 23 years old. Wow. Meaning that he was 2 years older than what you have to be to buy alcohol.
I think I've heard this story. The same. Didn't 6ix9ine have a similar story to this?
6ix9ine has a couple similar stories to this.
He got a lot of stories.
And I think that when we talk about holding our own R.Kellys in our community accountable, I think Dream drastically missed the mark with this one because, and not only did she miss the mark, she made a very violent decision to have him in this docu-series because first and foremost, somebody made a really salient point on Twitter. Charlamagne is nothing more than a radio personality.
Yes.
So the fact that people call on him all the time to engage in these different conversations makes no sense in the first place because he has no range. He lets us know time and time again he has no range. All he is a radio personality.
Doesn't seek to get the range.
Doesn't want it.
I
doesn't want it.
I think they're playing this we want visibility type of situation. And I see that happening. So I'm just going to be honest. I see so many people doing that, thinking that these folks have these hot takes or whatever you want to call it, and they really don't have anything to offer. Like, you're thinking that these people are going to give whatever project you're working on more visibility and stuff, but it's kind of taken away from the conversation. And you don't, I will never sacrifice the intent of stuff I'm trying to do or the message for that. And I think that he was not the right person.
People were saying that essentially comes down to laziness. And who's a black guy with a big platform that we can call on? Charlamagne. That's it. And they don't do any research.
There's some folks who would have just. I don't even know if Charlamagne even got paid to be there.
None of them got paid. She just said on Twitter.
But I'm just saying, give some people that are actually out here doing the work some.
It's lazy. It's irresponsible and it's lazy. And I will be honest, and I will say this because I said it on Twitter, so it's already public anyway. The docu-series didn't lose its credibility to me when I saw him, but it did make me question a lot of what was in the docu-series when I saw him because I don't know how. Oprah said, "I just don't know a better person. I don't know a worse person. I don't know how we can have a 6-hour docu-series about an abuser where we're talking about the culture, right? We're talking about how for 30 plus years, black folks at large were allowing this man to abuse young girls. I don't know how we do a whole docu-series like that and then say, well, here's another abuser, I'm going to throw him in there. And I don't believe Dream. I'm sorry. I don't believe her when she said that she was unaware of anything else. Leonard has been publicly called out about his rape allegations for several years now.
And not even just that, his violent,
transmisogyny.
You know how he did Jenny Mob.
Yeah. There's a whole campaign about refusing the Breakfast Club from like stop watching them after Jenny Mob went on, and they treated her like trash. So like that should have been enough.
When she was talking about surface level stuff, period. Like she really doesn't even like. Girl, I've been telling her 101. Like, girl, I've been doing all this work. Yeah, right. I should be talking about something more. But she said, "I'm gonna use this moment
down." Yeah,
she did. And then you took all of that in disrespect. So I just
and then invited Lil Duval onto the next show, and then we're talking about trans women. Like in that same
invalidated.
It just doesn't make sense to me. I don't care. I know folks might have issues with that, but I don't believe Dream, and I don't appreciate that she did that. I think that fucked up her entire.
Can we get Angela Rye on case and find out what was
the same one that defended Lenard?
So the question is. A lot of people are asking, and people said, where were these normally outspoken activists on Twitter, TM, which I'll be using?
Trademark.
Where were these people that are always talking about like what we need to do? I mean, and I didn't see a lot of folks. I honestly did not.
Outside of the ones who were already active in the last 10 years in this, you weren't going to find them because they're too connected to Charlamagne.
And I won't even just say...
Not just that, but they were not even... They didn't talk about the documentary as much. And honestly, I watched a video today, or was it yesterday? It was actually yesterday. And Master P had some hot takes on the whole situation.
I bet he did.
And I saw a lot of folks who are on TV, reality show, like saying, Tiny, I saw you in there. Comment and said, that's what I'm talking about, like, because, you know, Master P came out and said that he was disappointed that they did not go on CNN. Like, I would not be on, this is verbatim, like, I'm not quoting everything he said, but basically what he was saying was, I would not be doing a documentary or a docu-series with Lifetime. I would be beating somebody's ass or I would be on CNN. And
so they'll be R.Kelly's ass.
They're not. They're not. I mean, George Zimmerman's still alive, so
right.
We know
so we can blame. There are critiques to be made against Dream and against her docu-series that folks have publicized, but that one is not one because you a grown-ass man who has been in this industry for decades yourself, and if you wanted to beat somebody's ass, you should have beat his ass a long time ago.
When we talk about holding our personal R. Kelly's accountable, it goes beyond, to me, you know, the family and our personal assailants, but back to my point about decorum and institutions.
Absolutely.
We have to dismantle institutions that take up space that are harmful.
Absolutely.
And that forces us, especially as black and brown folks in society who have had to cape for the same 5 to 10 organizations, spaces, whether it be at our local level or our national level. Listen, okay, as an organizer and as a person that's out here doing work, it is very, very, very difficult to engage in work such as working with survivors and sexual assault, justice, and whatever, to do this day in and day out, to deal with it yourself personally. And then you get your chance, right? You finally get a large platform, you get your Lifetime docu-series, and then it's flawed by using somebody like a Charlamagne, you know, in the series, because the person doing the work doesn't engage in it in this way. They're an artist with a platform who has the capacity to organize the right people in the right room, to cut the right film, to put it on the right network, and boom, here it is. And in order for us to move on as a society, to start divorcing this decorum, we have to look these platforms in the face, like your Breakfast Club, and say we're not going to have it. I do with this everyday organizing in Atlanta. Like, I cannot stand to listen to V103 and Frank and Wanda in them every day.
Well, Wanda ain't got no job no more.
Child,
ain't got no job no more.
Talk about it. But to think about it, you in the streets, you yelling, you protesting, you doing this, you doing that, you've gone to jail for this shit, right? And then she shows up at your next march to be seen because she has this platform. And then the next day is kikiing in the face of the mayor and the power structure because their platform, you know, exists from laying in the bed with these, you know, these devils, these black folks with power who just squeeze the life out of, you know, black folks without it in their cities, in their towns, in their lanes, in their part of the culture. And we have to sit back and we're just them kids popping on Twitter. Like, why y'all always got to be so critical? Why you have to drag them every chance you get? You should be happy your mayor is black. Okay, but...
That was me.
That was her, and I dragged her too.
Yes, we should just be happy that the people in charge look like us, right?
Right.
That this is a black woman in charge. But like,
but that doesn't mean our politics.
Who is this black woman protecting? Who is this black person allowing?
Besides her dry mac and cheese.
I wasn't even completely
we're gonna move the culture
at
forward.
That point. But I'm saying in general in the culture that you talk about why is there such a big issue with cishet black women, older cishet black women still protecting R. Kelly? Is that we are still stuck as a culture at cheering for them for just, oh my God, like, you're there. You have this position. Yay, Kamala Harris for running for president. Okay, but like, she the police. So, do we expect women who sit in these positions to protect a rapist, to protect an abuser, to stand up for their fellow black woman if their power hinges on them turning the blind eye? We can't continue. We're going to continue to elect black women who sit in these positions who are the cops who turn their blind eye at homelessness every day in favor of dancing for white men and black men or whoever else.
Ooh, she going there.
Yep.
She is.
But we expect something different when we're abused. Like, we a marginalized group of people, us black queer folks, are out here being slandered, being murdered, being hurt, being abused day in to day out. We expect a respectable, cishet black woman with a lot to lose to stand up for us.
Especially we got white women like Ellen taking them on the platform to let them apologize. But we're going to move on. I do, do you think Kamala Harris is listening to R. Kelly?
Because I think Kamala Harris is listening to any black person.
The top 10 playlist.
I think she's going to run for president and all of a sudden she's going to know Gucci Mane.
The top 20 winners.
Before that she was listening to Rascal Flatts. So
you said before that she was listening to
Rascal Flatts, Green Day, Queen, not Nicki Minaj.
I won't even give her Queen.
Dang, right? Because I
made it Queen Radio to get the hot takes.
The freedom.
Eat rice.
So
there to eat your rice.
Why is there still a strong fan base for R. Kelly, and why are so many women still listening to him? Because we heard throughout the documentary, like when he was going outside, he's like, he ain't do it. It was like a lot of black women. Even they showed him going to the concert still when they were stopping the new R. Kelly situation. Like there were a lot of black women like saying, "Sis,
for me to judge." Literally,
I can't separate the art from the person, but yeah, when we listen to queer music, it's a different story. I don't have time. So why is that?
As soon as we mention Billie Holiday, just like
we don't want to hear it.
Yeah,
right. We don't want to hear it. So why do you think so many black women are still listening to R. Kelly?
I mean, a lot of the reason that I just said, they sit in these positions and they are afraid to critique. But for black women who aren't in big power positions, who sit at the centers of decision making, I think there's this fundamental understanding of us humanizing each other. Like, it's okay for us to kiki and call each other sis when it's acceptable, especially in a place of decorum, like, your college, your sorority house, your beauty salon, whatever. But, for instance, one of the people that I follow on Twitter who, I thought was one of my friends, but wow, she's educated, master's degree, social worker, out here. And her response to the R. Kelly was a kiki post about, y'all sitting here saying all these things, but y'all remember being in high school, being fast, inviting, Victor up here with a 10-piece and getting in the car with him, and you knew he was 30 and you was 15. You remember that. We all did that. But let's talk about Donald Trump. That is, this R. Kelly thing is distracting us from the real issues.
Yeah, the government shutdown.
And I'm like,
we all know.
The government shut down. Like, they've been talking about this documentary since
don't do.
And the government shut down. I think it's been like 18 days.
What does the government
it's not even
do
fully
for
shut
me?
down. It's partially shut down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And people think it's just so much.
I am black and poor in America, okay? What they gonna do for me? Maybe cut my tax refund check that is my money that's been taken out of my check and send it to me? I don't know. But when we have an issue like black women and girls like on TV telling their survivor stories, asking for you to listen, not just stand up for us, not just protect us, listen, believe it, and you're gonna come back at, well, we was all doing it back in the day, so what? There's this like normalcy around us being raised as black women, as black young folks, growing up to say, we're going to be complicit with abusers because that's just what you do. You know, as somebody born in this body, in this life, with no autonomy over it, like, who are we to stand up to this 30-year-old man who may be bringing my little broke ass some food at school? Why not just hop in the car with him and do whatever he says? Because the world ain't taking up for me. I can't even get help at home from my own parents. This might have been normalized for me since I was a little girl who knows the horrors and abuses that, you know, these folks have dealt with growing up. So where do we say no? We don't. Like, it's normalized for us to not be able to use that word. I still struggle with it day in and day out. Saying no. Why? Because there's immediate fear tied to it. So it's like when you're protecting of yourself comes at the behest of you protecting an abuser, you calm your fear by just being complicit and saying yes. It is hard for me to look honestly at a 35, 40-year-old woman, not even that old. You know, the person I'm talking about is, you know, my age group, between a 25, 30-year-old age gap. They're a millennial. They're talking about this on Instagram with fellow women around their age. They think it's okay to just say, well, we all been there, done that. They just got caught.
Listen, in my two things. The first time that I had sex, I was 15 years old, and the person I had sex with was 29.
You didn't have sex, beloved.
That was not sex.
But
and I go back and I think about, like, I'm not one of them folks that's going to say that. Like, we were all doing it because I don't know what the fuck I was doing. And I had both parents in the house. Like, and I get tired of people saying, well, my parents, like, you cannot watch your child 24/7. If you watch them 24/7, when they get 19 to 20, they be confused as fuck going out in the world because they've been sheltered. Like, there's no way. Like, my mother and father work, and I think when people say, where were these parents? They was probably fucking working. Like, they're in Chicago. Like, I just, like, he preyed on poor young black girls. That's a lot. And I was like, this whole situation, I was 15. I did not know what I was doing. And I think back now, and I'm telling myself, I could have put myself in so much danger. Not even just, I could have been kidnapped, all types of stuff. Like, even worse than just, like, having sex with a 29-year-old man at the age of 15. He could have gave me an STI. And I would have never known, because when I go to the doctor, they're not testing for things like that.
Yeah.
They're not testing, and I'm damn sure not going to say that I'm having sex to my pediatrician right next to my mother.
Especially with the man.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not going to say that. I'm not doing any of that. So I'm thinking about, like some of us were doing it, but that shit was fucked up. And I did not know what I was doing at 15, 16 years old.
I don't think, no one knows what the fuck.
Shit, I didn't even know I was doing 19 with a $10,000 credit card.
Child.
So we're never in the same place 5, 10 years. Like I'm not going to be in the same place a year from now.
I mean, I can't even imagine, because I really do understand what you're saying, because I've had similar experiences like that when I was in, like, high school doing shit I should have never been doing.
And it's only when you reach a certain age or a different age and you look back down and you're like, bitch, I would never be rolling around no goddamn high school. And that's what these grown ass niggas was doing, and I thought I was hot shit.
They're not even extremely grown niggas. Like, I think about my own experience, like the number of times that I, at 15, 16, lied and said I was 17, 18, because the nigga that was a senior when I was a freshman, or might have been a senior in high school when I was in 8th grade, still lingering around our 2 grown parties that my friend Mama know we having, but she not at the door checking to see that the person walking in is 18 or 25, and this is, you know, my friend's 16th or 17th birthday party, so her whole group there is going to be 17 or younger. Like,
we all say
we normalize it. We know, you know, you from a small town, like, you go off to college, you come back, where the kickback at? Well, the high school kids are doing the grown thing and linger in. And it's just, we've normalized this culture and behavior. So how do we teach the next generation, right?
And I think this is, go ahead.
For me, I was first, like, introduced to, like, male attraction, or men being attracted to me when I was 8 years old.
Wow.
So, like, my childhood sexual abuse, it didn't start until I was 12, and that was in the black church. So there was a man that kind of was just interested in, like, the young women group in the church. He would never give the men any attention, like the young boys, like, go out with them, play sports, none of that. He would always be attracted to the women. So me being introduced to that, I came forward to my church. I talked to a few people in my church, and they always would talk to me about forgiveness and being forgiven to him, and you know that God would want you to forgive. And I even witnessed him or walked in on him assaulting other little girls. But I was too scared to say something because he was in his 30s. I'm 12 years old. I don't know what to do. And also, like, my parents, they were working all the time, so they would trust their children to be in his hands and to be watched by them. So it just, like, really created, like, a lot of trauma for me, depression, anger. So throughout watching Surviving R.Kelly, I kind of related to the survivors through everything, like, just someone manipulating you, someone that you trust, someone having a hold on you, and things like that. So, like, going back to the question of why black women still, like, support him and things like this, I honestly think it's because they're not ready to have the conversation. Because I talked to a lot of black women in my church about it, and they weren't ready to talk about it. I try not to cry, but it was just very hard, like, coming forward, talking about it. And we go to the conversation of, will it get better, or, like, is this documentary enough? And I personally believe in my heart it will never be enough. Survivors can display their trauma on national TV, they can talk about it, but it just will never be enough to me. It's just never going to get any better. And for me, it's not getting any better. For me, it's, like, been hard to just even be in here because I've constantly been triggered by the conversation, but I'm happy that you're having this conversation. I appreciate you bringing it. But for me, and surviving and just thriving, I don't think it's going to get any better. So I just related to the survivors in a very deep way. And the documentary honestly just left me sick to my stomach. Like, I had to stop watching it. I just had to, like, talk to my partner and let him know how I felt. But I just don't think that black women are ready to protect one another or protect black girls. They're always seeing us as fast and being fast. So for me, it's just not going to get better.
Yeah, I'm so happy that you went in that direction and you shared your story. Because I was going to say, to the question, why are older black women still his fans, is because we like to act like trauma is temporal. Like there's like trauma, there's a timetable on trauma, and it's not. A lot of the black women that we're seeing being his fans are also black women who are victims, who've been victims and survivors of assault. And so they haven't reckoned with their own trauma, so they don't know how to even reckon and deal with an assailant who's been proven to be one over and over and over again. And every time they come in contact with R. Kelly, they might be even trying to save R. Kelly by not leaving him, and in efforts to, you know, amend the situation and their victimization and what they've survived, their assault. So I think that, like, we have to be very clear that, you know, there's again no age on how people are engaging this man, and that even in their old age, that trauma that they're feeling, or that trauma that they may be experiencing, R. Kelly might be a symbol of that, and they might be reckoning with that through him in multiple ways.
I was gonna say to that point too, when we talk about the roles that black women play in our society, right? And that back to that decorum point, back to that humanization point, like that role of black motherhood that they perform so well. You look at that point that was harped on about R. Kelly, about one, him being a victim himself or a survivor himself, and two, about him being illiterate. I found it so, like, it was, I don't know, it just stood out to me how much we came back to the point that he can't read, he's illiterate. People joked about that shit's not funny. Right. And, you know, people took that point to humanize him, to say, well, he's lacking here, so he overly compensated with his masculinity, with his genius, with his art, with bringing people in. He manipulated younger girls. People even said, I heard a defense that, well, maybe he's cognitively 15 years old himself, you know, because, you know, his education stopped young. He was thrown into the limelight as a teenager. He quit school early.
I think Nick Cannon made that.
But that's the same type of defense that we've heard, like, for Floyd Mayweather, for example. He's a known abuser.
And they also say he was a victim of abuse as well.
Yeah, people came for him, you know, and we love to harp on, well, Floyd can't read, but he can fight. So he's made all this money being a fighter and a businessman. But like, at what point do black women, you know, stand up and stop coddling, stop mothering, stop always constantly trying to find that place of understanding, stop trying to find that needle in the haystack of bullshit, that shining point that says, oh, well, they're abused too. Like, they're harmed too. Like, they're illiterate. So, like, let me coddle them instead of, you know, calling a spade a spade.
But we only engage black women as maternal figures. In our society. So, again,
like, nothing else.
They're nothing else if not modes of care. Like, technologies of care for us. So, I think, like, that's another thing. We have to be honest about the ways in which we are subjecting black women to a maternal figure that they are now occupying and using with R.Kelly, and how that has so much to do with, again, how we see them as mothers and mothers only.
Yeah,
I will say that I think a lot of it also has to do with the internalization of misogyny.
Absolutely.
So, whether it's as a means of survival, or like, you know, we're being fucked up, whatever, I'm gonna do whatever the fuck I need to do to survive, whatever it is, or as a means to like try and step on another woman, I think a lot of times it may have to do with the fact that they're internalizing these idiotic like mindsets that society has forced on black women, just even as I said, for just survival. And so they take that out on everybody, like everybody else, like other victims, survivors, right, exactly. And so I think that's one of the dangers of the isms and shit that we all have to, I mean, especially black women, have to deal with.
And I think that, well, one point is you'll notice that like there's, in this conversation, just two black women who are engaging with us, who I'm very thankful for. But the reality is that we reached out to a lot of black women, right, to engage in this conversation, and so many of them didn't want to be a part, and understandably so, because so many of them are survivors. I don't know too many black women who are not survivors of some sort of sexual assault, right, and some of them either don't yet have the courage or have engaged too much and given too much of themselves to this fight to engage in this type of conversation. So I wanted to recognize that. But I also wanted to just say that I have a very unique, well, I don't think it's very unique at all, but I think that in terms of how we talk about sexual violence, I have a very unique story with sexual violence. Like, the first time I was engaged in a sexual way was also when I was 8 or 9 years old, by a black man. And I think that when I look back on and theorize around and think through my own assaults, so much of it is so intertwined and like bundled up in anti-blackness, anti-queerness, heterosexism, misogyny and misogynoir in a particular way, and anti-fatness, right? Like, with how my body was always engaged as a then fat boy who had a body that was supposedly only belonged to a black woman, right? Who I walked around as this fat boy, and I had a lot of ass for somebody my age, and I was thick, I was big, and that never really belonged to boys. That body never really belonged to people like me, right? And so because of that, I think that a lot of times I was engaged sexually because my body was read as as fast, right? And I gave room to men, cishet men, to be able to engage me sexually while thinking of me as something as somebody who is non-boy, as somebody who is woman, as somebody who is girl, right? And I think about that a lot, because for me, sexual violence has almost become a piece of my existence, right? Like, I've been violated so much sexually over my entire life, literally up until just a couple years ago, that it has become just another piece of me, and I know that is true for so many black women. And that's not to of course compare my experience, but to say that I think so many queer men, queer boys, so many non-binary folks, I identify as non-binary, who are assigned male at birth, who exist in these fat bodies that sometimes have a little bit more ass than what boys are supposed to have, right? Or who sometimes have a little bit bigger thigh than what boys are supposed to have. Whatever that means. Mm-hmm. Are engaged sexually, specifically and particularly by cishet black men, because we give them the comfort of engaging a body that's supposed to exist on a woman, while also not being read as vulnerable as women or as girls, as little black girls or black women, to where we are able to be violated in that way and expected to endure it, to deal with it, to work through it, right? And so when I think about the R.Kellys of my own community, like this is a conversation I'm not even had with my mom, right? So many of my own assailants are people from family, like people who are either in my blood family or who are in my family through marriage, right? Like those are my assailants, but also people who were family friends. Mm-hmm. And then there were people who just were random people, right? Then I get older and now I'm coming to my own queerness, and now I have to deal with the people who I don't know, who my family doesn't know, I've never met. These are strangers. These are people who I'm engaging through hookup culture, right? That are engaging my body in the same way that my body was always engaged as a boy, but now as an older person, because I'm still existing with this body that allows straight assumed and DL men to be like, I am not comfortable with engaging with like a softer, more feminine, openly gay man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage this person who presents in a particular way that any other person would read as masculine or masculine adjacent or whatever, but I read as feminine enough in that he has the thighs and he has the ass and he has the body that I can engage him in a particular way without making myself uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's I mentioned all that to say that I would not have even arrived at a point to where I could recognize myself as a survivor or be able to even think through my own assaults in this way had it not been for black women that I met through college, like Michaela, and like other black women that I met through college, who were so open and honest about their own experiences, who were able to give language and who have worked around and theorized around language that we use to describe our bodies and to describe our existences and to describe our experiences. So I think R.Kelly is unique only in that he is one of the biggest R&B artists to ever work in mainstream. Not a lot of R&B artists, especially in his era, really were working in mainstream. But other than that, R. Kelly's story is not unique. And so many of us have been engaged by R. Kelly's throughout our lives. Yes. More than once, more than twice, more than 3 times, right? By various men who exist in this way. And I think that it's easy for non-women to shit on black women and say, they his main fan base. I don't know why we got an issue with that. Like that's an easy and lazy position to take, right?